everybody. Good evening. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here and also a little scared to be here, but it should be fine. And just before I do my testimony, I just want to say a few verses. You don't need to turn to it or anything. It's only a couple of verses. It's found in John chapter 4, verse 14 and 15. It says, "But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be with him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. The woman saith unto him, Sir, give me this water, that I thirst not." And so, well, as you've already heard, my name's Rachel, and I live around Market Hill, somewhere between Market Hill and Points Pass, if anybody knows that, out in the middle of the countryside on a farm. So I don't know if is there many farmers in Monaghan? Any, raise your hand if you're a farmer. Let me see what type of crowd we have tonight here. Maybe a bit too many hands have went up, but I live on a farm. I can't say I'm a farmer. You probably know by looking at me I'm not much of a farmer, but I live on a farm, and I've grown up there most of my life, and I was born into a Christian family, and at the time it was a really big nuisance for me growing up having Christian parents, because I had to go to church on Sundays and I couldn't do things on Sundays, and everything that you want to do happened to be on a Sunday. Every concert that's happening always on a Sunday, and it used to drive me mad because I couldn't go or couldn't do it, and it was a real nuisance being in a Christian family, I thought at the time. But really looking back, I was real blessing just to be in a Christian family. And growing up, I didn't get into too much bother or anything. I was always quite quiet girl in school, and I just kind of put my head down and just got through with life. And it wasn't until whenever I was older, just the typical, about 17, 18 or so, just doing A-levels. And then that's whenever I just decided just to, well, still had the Christian parents, so I decided to maybe sneak out the house and maybe go for a few drinks or go out and just live that life. And at the time, I didn't really see much problem with it, because it's what everyone does, actually. It's more the norm. It's weird not to be drinking, so I thought I may as well just do it. And it was something that I always just wanted to do, and I just got into that and just went on with that life. And whenever I did my A-levels, I was going off to university, and I wasn't sure where to go. And there was either Belfast or London, and I really wanted to go to London, and I really only actually applied to Belfast just to stop Mum and Dad from asking me to apply to Belfast, and I really just didn't want to go. But results day came, and I got into London, and I just thought, I'm going to go. This is going to be great. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to sneak out anymore. I can just live the life that I thought that I really wanted. And that's exactly what I did. I just went over to London, about 19, I think. I just turned 19, and then I moved to London, and I thought this is great because, sorry, but I'm not a big fan of the farming life, and I was buzzing to get out of it. And got to London, big city life, and I really, at the time, really enjoyed it. I love all the galleries and all that there over there, and really got into it. And so whenever I started uni, typical uni life, probably the best way to socialize or to meet the most people is always through drinking and going out. And so I thought, this is great, that suits me fine. So I just went in to that life, and I just kind of jumped in feet first, didn't really think much about it. And as I said, I was always quite a quiet girl, didn't really get into too much bother, and I just thought, sure, what can a couple of drinks do and then go out? Just can't be that big of a deal, really. So I would keep going on, and I was there for 3 years, so by the time I got to third year, it was like just something I did all the time. It was kind of in a routine of it. And before I even knew it, actually, I think a couple of drinks turned into more than a couple of drinks, and it just kind of progressed and progressed, and I think I got further and further than I ever actually thought I would. And I would be going out a couple of times a week, and I had ended up drinking more and more, and it just kind of caught up with me that I didn't even see it happening. And in that there was just so many problems with it. I would go out, and then the next morning I would wake up and I would have so many problems. More than just a headache. I would have maybe fallen out with some people, or I'd maybe have problems with people, or even my whole life just seemed to just fall around and just evolve around going out and drinking and partying. And even just with money, I would be buying drinks and buying clothes and outfits, and everything was, where are we going to go next? And that was just the focus. And it was something I never really intended to be my focus, but it really did end up there. And I have written down here 3 things. I was lonely, I was miserable, and I was a mess. And by the time I was 3rd year, I had what I always thought that I wanted. I had that reputation. I was quite popular. Everyone knew me and everything. But being so popular at that time, I've never in my whole entire life been so lonely by knowing all those people, because they were just fake relationships. It was just, hello, Heather. There was nothing deep with them or anything. And I really started to struggle. And I remember just going out, just the usual, living the life they normally did. And I remember having a really, really horrible feeling just sitting on my chest. It was like a really, really, like I could physically feel it heavy sitting on my chest. And I've always been quite a happy person. I like the crack. I like to laugh, and I'm not really a negative person or a sad person, but this feeling was just so on me, and it was really annoying me because it's not what I usually am. It's not who I really want to be, and it was just annoying. And I remember I went to the GP. It was for something else, and then he says to me, "You've got depression." And I remember I heard it and I thought, nah, that's not me. I'm not that type of girl. I have fun all the time. Like, I don't have depression. And I remember even on TV and things, you always see someone with depression. They're lying in bed all day and they don't want to go out. But I was life and soul of the party. If you met me, you would have had absolutely no idea, because I'd be laughing. I'd be including you. I'd be inviting you over to my house. You would have no idea. But the reality was, inside, I was miserable. And I remember it took me a while to actually believe it myself, but it was true. I had depression, and it was a horrible feeling. It was something that I couldn't shake, and no matter what I did, it's not like being sad where you can just watch something and your mood can change. I couldn't shift it, and I really just wanted to shift it. And I've always been a type of person that if there's a problem, just fix it and move on. I'm very efficient like that way. And so there's so much at the minute about mental health. It's plastered everywhere, and there's so many things that you're supposed to do. So I thought to myself, I'm going to just get rid of this. I'm going to sort it out. There's loads of things out there to help people with mental health. I'm going to get this problem fixed. So I went to my GP and I was like, okay, got depression. What can you do for me? What are my options? So he says, right, well, you can go to counselling or you can take antidepressants. And I hate taking tablets, and I also hate talking to people, so it really wasn't two good options. But I thought, right, I'll try the counselling first of all. So I went, and as I said, really don't like sitting one-to-one and telling people how I'm feeling, but I really, really, really just wanted this feeling to go. It was so heavy on my chest, and it was making me feel horrible. So I thought, right, I'll just do it. I'll tell this English woman all my problems, and hopefully she'll have the thing to solve it. So I sat down and I told her everything, went through it all, and I remember she looked at me at the end and she goes, "Oh, that must be very tough." And that was it. And I thought, are you serious? That was all she gave me. And I thought, okay. So then I left, and I thought, I'm never going back to her again, because that was just absolutely no help at all. So then I went back to my GP. I says, okay, that's not helping me. What else can we do? So he says, right, well, then there's the antidepressants. And I didn't want to do that, but I thought, again, I just need this feeling to go. It was horrible, and I went. And I got them. And at that time, it was 2020, so I'm sure I don't need to remind you all. It was the COVID, it was the first lockdown. Everybody was cut off. And I took the tablets, and it takes 2 weeks to kick in. So after the 2 weeks, I found out that I was allergic to them. So I was sick for another 2 weeks or so. And so I couldn't take them. So then I had a telephone appointment with my GP at the COVID time. And I rang him and I says, I've done the counselling, I've done the tablets, what else can you do for me? And he's like, oh, well, there's other tablets. I goes, no, they made me so sick, I can't do that. What is the other option? And I remember just sitting on that phone, and it was just silence on the other end of that phone, because there was no other option. They don't have any other option. And that was really it. That was all that they could do for me. And I remember just hanging up and thinking, what do I do now? Because it was COVID and nothing was even on, and there was just nothing for me just to look forward to or just to do, and I just didn't know what to do. No one could help me. And so I just kept going on. I didn't have a choice. I had my exams, and I just did my exams, and then I ended up coming home because I couldn't get a job with all the lockdown and everything. And I ended up coming home, and it's again, no one knew. I didn't tell a single person what I was really going through, because I thought at the time, what's the point in telling anybody, because there's no one that can actually help me. And so whenever I came home, it was locked down, and then my parents, they started to go to this new church. And I could be honest with you, I did not want to go to this church. Maybe you're here tonight and you didn't want to come here tonight. I know how you feel. But I thought, literally, there's nowhere else to go. Everywhere is closed, so I'll just go to this church. And so I did just go to the church. And my brother, he got me in with a few young ones there, and we started to get in with them ones. And it was good to have, because whenever I came home, I didn't have any of my friends. They're all over in London, and even that was a real struggle for me, and I was really at my lowest point at that point. And then, so I started to go to this church just to get socialized, just to actually have a bit of a life. And I started to get in with the young ones. And I remember there was one night, it was a testimony night just like this here. And there was a man that testified, and I had no idea what he said. So hopefully by the end you'll actually remember what I said, but I couldn't tell you what he said. But our pastor, Stephen Riddle, he got up afterwards, and he was just speaking at the end. And I remember he was up on the pulpit, and he was crying up on the pulpit. And I can still picture it. He's got his glasses on, he was leaning across the pulpit, and he was in floods of tears, and he was crying because of the thought of people going to hell. And I remember I was sitting around the back of the church, and I just looked at him, and as soon as I looked at him, I just knew that what he was talking about, it was real. And I thought to myself, that man is up there on that pulpit, he's up there crying for me. It's me. I was like, I'm the one that's going to hell. And I remember I didn't even wait to the end of the service. I just sat in my seat, and I just cried out unto the Lord, and I just asked him to forgive me for all of my sins and everything that I've done in my life. And I just there in that moment, I was at my lowest. And at that point, I wasn't even sad anymore. I was just numb. No matter what you said to me, no matter what you did to me, I just couldn't feel anything. But there and then, whenever I prayed onto the Lord, something had changed in my life, and I felt it. And I felt the change, and I had been changed ever since. And it was a real I can't even explain it, but I just felt like I'd been cleaned on the inside. It was a real blessing just to have that time and have him just save me just there and then in my seat. And thinking back and thinking of the options of what the world could offer me, it was really nothing that they could offer me. And looking back, I honestly believe that the only thing that the world had left for me was suicide. And just when the world could give me nothing but death, God, he gave me his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. And honestly, if it wasn't for the grace of God, I can't say that I would be here tonight. And I know that there's a lot of people going through a lot of things. And there's suicide, it's at its highest at the minute. And maybe you're thinking, here, this girl, she's talking about depression, then is she going to go for suicide? But I am, because I am sick of people being tricked into thinking that there's no hope in this world. I'm sick of people thinking that this is all that there is, that we just came from a big bang, and all that there is your 9-to-5 job, and there's nothing's important. You just die, and that's it. That's not right. That's not the truth. There is so much more. There is a life worth living, and God can change your life completely, and this world is not all that there is. And there's a hymn that I really like, and it's about a man called William Cooper, and I just thought I would just include this wee story. He was a bit like me. He was over in London, and he was a lawyer in London, and he had depression as well. And he actually was a bit step further. He was so depressed, he just decided that he was going to commit suicide. And William, he was in his house, and he took a knife and he put it on his chest, and the blade broke and saved his life. But that didn't stop him, because he had that mindset. He had no hope left. He was at his lowest. And so he didn't stop. He went and he got a rope, and he tied it around the bed frame, and he jumped, and the bed frame broke, and it saved his life, but that didn't stop him. So he tried the third time, and he went in the door frame this time. And it worked this time, and he went and he lost his consciousness. But then the rope broke. And I don't know who found him or what happened, but he ended up in an asylum. And he had a doctor that was a bit like my doctor. This was over 200 years ago, and we're in the same place. His doctor couldn't really do anything for him, but his doctor was a Christian. And he left a Bible in his room. And that man, he lifted the Bible and he opened it up on the story of Lazarus, and he read that story and he got saved. And just when he was at his absolute lowest, when he had nothing to give, even in that song that we had at the start, all that I have is a hallelujah. That's all that you need. And that's all that William Cooper had. And God saved his life, and he ended up writing all of these hymns. And my favorite one, he wrote, and it doesn't say, I wish that I ended it all in this world. Just there's no meaning to life. No, he wrote a song and he said, there is a fountain filled with blood drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners plunge beneath the flood, lose all of their guilty stains. He then says, the dying thief rejoiced to see that fountain in his day, and there may I, though vile as he, wash all of my sins away. That man's life was changed, and my life was changed, and God can do it again and again and again. He's been doing it for years, and he can really just change your life again. There's a Psalm 40, it says, I waited patiently for the Lord, and he inclined unto me and heard my cry. He brought me up out of the horrible pit, out of the miry clay, and he set my feet upon the rock and established my goings. He hath put a new song in my mouth, even praise unto our God. Many shall see it and fear, and shall trust in the Lord. He put a new song in William Cooper's mouth, and he put a new song in my mouth, and he can put a new song in your mouth. There's more than just what the world has to offer. God can give you so much more. And just as I started, I said a few verses, and just gonna paraphrase the story really of where it's from. It's John 4 if you would like to read it, but it's about a woman in a well. It's one of my favorite stories. And there's a woman in the well, she's a Samaritan woman, and Jesus comes and sees her and asks for water. And this is a bit weird because a Jew shouldn't really be talking to a Samaritan, and she doesn't really know why he's talking to her. But that's Jesus. He doesn't worry about labels. It doesn't matter if you're a Protestant or if you're Catholic or whatever. He's just worried about your soul. That's all he cares about, is you inside. And so he talked to this woman and he says, I can give you living water. And what he meant by that, it's the Holy Spirit. It's the Spirit that you get whenever you're saved. That's what keeps you. That's what drives you. That's what makes you want to come out to church and makes you want to go to the prayer meeting. You don't need to worry about if you can change yourself. That's not what it's about. It's about God changing you and God coming into you. And he says, I can give you living water and you'll never thirst again. And he says, do you want it? And of course she said, yeah, I want it. And he goes, okay, you go get your husband. She goes, I don't have a husband. And then Jesus turns around and says, you've got 6 husbands, which I quite like. I think it's sort of funny. But the thing is, he saw her sin. He knows your sin. Whatever it is, it's not a secret because God knows it. He sees all. And that's the first thing that you have to do, is you have to acknowledge your sin. And that's what this woman did. She acknowledged her sin. And then she believed. She believed that the man that she was talking to was Christ. And he came and he gave her that water. He gave her the living water like he gave with me. And then she went out and she told all the people about it. And that's what I'm here tonight to do, just to tell you all about what God has done in my life. I'm not here to tell you a sad story about a girl that was depressed. I'm here to tell you how God has changed my life, how he took someone who had nothing, absolutely nothing to give him, and yet he changed my life completely. And I'm just so glad that I am saved. I am so glad that the day that I just prayed unto God and how he just came to me. And see that woman at the well, it doesn't say her name, But she may as well have been called Rachel Denny because the story is no different. It was a different sin, but it doesn't matter what type of sin it is. God is more powerful and can cleanse every single sin that there is. And he came to that woman, and I was just like her. I was ruined. I was wasted. I had absolutely nothing to give. I don't know why he came to me, like the way she doesn't know why he was talking to her. But the difference was that he didn't meet me at the well. He met me just at the seat in my church. And I believe that he can meet you just here tonight at that seat that you're sitting to here in this meeting as well. God can really change your life completely. There is hope in this world, and it's God. And I just really encourage you that if you are struggling, if you are having a tough time, just call on to God. Don't worry, don't go to man, because man is full of disappointment. But God can change your life completely. He can really just give you that living water that you can just live upon. And I'm just going to finish off with just singing a song. I don't even know if I have much of a voice left, but I'm going to end with a song, and I just really encourage you just to think about what I've said and just to think of the words of the song. I need that. I'll just start here. There is a river that flows from God above. There is a river that's filled with His great love. Come to these waters, there is a vast supply. There is a river that never shall run dry. There came a sound from heaven as a rushing mighty wind. It filled every heart with singing, and it gave them peace within. The prophet gave the promise, the Spirit